The board lit up at 3:40 with a waveform I didn't recognize, which at Corot Field usually meant a comet fragment skipping off the outer marker or a satellite talking to itself. I was 3 weeks into a 6-month rotation, alone in the shack except for the duty log and a pot of coffee going bitter on the hot plate. I logged the intercept the way I logged everything: timestamp, bearing, signal class unknown, and reached for the phone to call it up the chain before I understood what I was looking at. It wasn't a satellite, it was a ship. The waveform had a shape to it, a rhythm, 3 short pulses and a long one, over and over, the oldest kind of please that exists. I ran it against the listening post's open catalog and got nothing. No registry hit, no treaty flag, no species match. Whoever was sending it hadn't sent it to me. I could tell that much from the header alone, a jump string trailing the squawk, 6 digits where our charts only needed 4, aimed at coordinates that didn't correspond to any relay Corot Field had ever logged. Somebody a long way from home had typed 2 numbers wrong, and it had cost them the whole address. I pulled the header apart while the coffee went cold. Corot Field's board is built to catch anything broadcasting on the standard emergency bands, regardless of who's sending it. That's the whole point of a listening post. You don't get to be picky about who you hear, but the catalog match is supposed to at least tell you what you're looking at. This one came back with a blank species field and a jump string that didn't parse against anything in our charts. 6 digits where 4 would have closed the loop. I sat with that a while, turning it over, because the only way you get a header like that is if somebody typed a number wrong a long way from here, and the mistake traveled faster than they did. By 400, the thing was visible on the long-range scope, tumbling, decelerating hard and badly, atmosphere already starting to peel light off its hull in long orange strips. I watched the trajectory model update twice, then a third time, each pass tightening the impact ellipse down toward the training flat 6 kilometers past our fence, ground we used for nothing but drone drills and the occasional grass fire. By 4:15 it was down, and the squawk cut out the second it hit, which told me more than the crash itself did. Whatever had been driving that beacon didn't have power left to spare on anything but staying alive, and it had just spent the last of what it had. I called it improperly this time. Corot Field answers to Fringe Compliance Command, and compliance does not move fast, and I understood that going in. What I didn't expect was how fast they'd move to tell me to do nothing. The reply came back inside 40 minutes, which for command is practically a scream. Species unconfirmed. No prior contact record. Threshold Directive 9 in full effect. No personnel, human or otherwise, to approach an uncleared contact site pending xenobiological and communications assessment. A review team would be dispatched from the sector office. Estimated arrival, 11 days. I read that twice. 11 days is a long time to leave something crawling on the ground. I want to be honest about what command was actually saying, because it wasn't cruelty. Not exactly. Directive 9 exists because first contact has gone wrong before, badly, in ways that don't make it into training packets anymore because nobody wants to teach new recruits how it happened. The rule is that you wait. You confirm. You do not let one medic with a field kit decide, alone at 4:15, what an entire species is going to remember about humanity forever. I understood the logic. I have never once been able to make the logic outrank the sound that was still playing in my head, 3 short pulses and a long one, even after the transmission had gone dead. So I did the thing the log will show I did, and the thing command's report will show I was ordered not to do, and I want to be clear, I don't regret either version of that sentence. I walked out past the fence with a medical kit and a rifle I never intended to use, and I found the ship folded into the scrub like something that had tried very hard to be gentle about dying. There were 4 of them. 3 were already past anything I could do. The 4th was a woman. I'll use the word woman because that's the shape she had, and because it's the truest word I've got half out of a crash restraint, holding a child against her chest with both arms locked so tight I had to talk to her for a full minute before her hands would open enough for me to see whether the child was breathing. He was, barely. I did what field medicine actually is, which is mostly just triage and stubbornness, cleared an airway, stopped a bleed, splinted what needed splinting, and stayed. I told her, in the flat voice you use when you don't know if anyone can understand you, and you say it anyway because silence is worse. Help is coming. I did not tell her that command had said 11 days. I did not tell her command had said not to come at all. She understood some of it. Enough. Her name, I learned much later from the review team's own translation work, was Asa Kettrell, and the boy was hers, and the ship had been called the Meridian Drift, and it had never once been aimed at Earth. It had been running for a relay beacon at her own homeworld. A routine evacuation jump during a system-wide fuel crisis. Nothing dramatic. Nothing anyone back home would have called an emergency, until the navigation string came back with 2 digits transposed, and put them 140 light-years from where they meant to be, broadcasting a call for help toward a listening post that had never heard of them and had, by policy, been told to let them lie in the grass for 11 days. She asked me, I know this now, translated later, though at the time it was just sound and her eyes on my hands, whether I had been sent. I told her no. Nobody sent me. I came because the beacon was still playing in my head and I didn't have it in me to sit in the shack and listen to command silence fill the space where a response should have been. Those 11 days had a shape to them I hadn't expected. I brought what the shack could spare, ration packs, a water purifier, a burn kit meant for training accidents, blankets that smelled like drone hangar diesel, and carried it out after every shift like a man doing something ordinary. Because if I let myself think about how far outside my orders I was walking, I wasn't sure I'd keep walking. Asa Kettrell buried her 3 dead herself, on the second morning, in ground she'd never asked to be buried in, and I stood off at a respectful distance with my kit bag and didn't try to help with that part, because some things a person needs to do with their own hands. She let me help with everything else. By the 4th night she'd stopped flinching when I came through the scrub. By the 7th, she was teaching me the word for the boy's name properly, because I'd been saying it wrong, and I was teaching her the 2 words I figured she'd need most out of anyone's language, stay and safe, not because I thought they'd fix anything, but because they were the truest 2 words I had. The review team arrived on schedule, 11 days later, by which point the boy was stable. Asa Kettrell had learned 4 words of my language and taught me 2 of hers, and command's official record, I've read it. It's a matter of file now, states clearly that no rescue asset was dispatched to the contact site, that Threshold Directive 9 was observed in full, and that the situation resolved without incident prior to review team arrival. That's the sentence. Resolved without incident. It doesn't mention the fence, or the 11 nights I spent walking back out there after my shift because nobody had told me I couldn't do that twice, or the boy's hand closing around my finger the second night when the fever broke. Command never sent anything. That's true, and it's in the file, and I won't argue with the file. The beacon was never meant to reach us in the first place. That was true too, from the first second I saw the header on that jump string. 2 numbers, wrong by pure accident, and a woman calling toward a homeworld beacon that was never going to hear her, and instead she got a listening post with a policy of silence and 1 man on the wrong side of a fence who couldn't make himself follow it. Asa Kettrell asked me once, near the end, through the 2 words we'd built between us, what I would tell my own command about what I'd done. I told her the truth. I'd tell them exactly what happened, and I'd let them file it however they needed to file it, because the file was never going to be the part that mattered. She didn't have a word for that. Neither, really, do I, but she nodded the way people do when they've understood something they didn't have language for yet, and that was the last thing that happened at Carew Field that I ever bothered writing down for anyone but myself.